we'll get started here. Well, welcome everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Kent Nelson. I'm the Forest Ranger Specialist with the Maine Forest Service. I've had the pleasure of doing Firewise type stuff on the coastal islands off Portland for the last 10 years or so. And what I'd like to do today is do about a 30-minute presentation. And I've set it up so it covers all three of the Portland Islands that are considered Firewise USA sites. So I'll talk a little bit about each one. And I'm going to start off by going through a review of what the Firewise program is and the requirements that we need every year. And then a little bit of history of Firewise from each island. And then I'll go into some pictures that show some examples of ways that we can reduce that risk of a wildfire near the structures. That's the premise of the program. And you're welcome to chime in if you have a question. I'll certainly allow more time at the end, and I'll try to keep this to about 30 minutes. So hopefully we'll get started. Any questions before we get started? All right, well, here's a Google Earth map of the islands that we're going to be talking about today: Great Diamond, Little Diamond, and Cushing. This is considered a virtual Firewise Day, and it's one of the annual requirements to stay in the National Fire Protection Association's Firewise program. Here are some of the other requirements. You have to maintain a Firewise board with people from the island communities as well as Portland. Have to do at least 1 day of hazardous fuels mitigation, which is the fancy word for brush chipping days. And then you need to do a Firewise Day event. Those robocalls, gotta love them. Okay, so the last thing you have to do is what we're doing right now is a Firewise Day event where you talk about wildfire prevention and education. So in order to stay in the Firewise program, you have to invest a certain amount of volunteer hours. There's no money involved, but they kind of treat it like money. And they allow each volunteer hour to be calculated at the national volunteer rate of, it's about $25 an hour. So if you have 100 dwellings, which means households, cottages on your island, then you're required to do 100 volunteer hours annually. And that includes brush chipping and the Firewise Day we're doing right now. You have to do that to stay in the program. But we've never had any issues with that with any of the Portland Island Firewise communities. There's been no problem to meet these requirements. So we'll continue on. And I don't know if you guys have this new sign that I have on the this picture, but they have kind of changed the name of the Firewise communities. They're no longer calling them communities. It's Firewise USA sites. So I'll try to say that. I'm sort of getting used to it, but I'm not too worried about if you guys say it wrong. As long as you're doing the work to reduce that risk of fire and ignitability, then you're doing great. So here we are on Cushing Island, and there's an example of the old sign, which is still fine, by the mule barn, I guess. And I think we were contacted by Cushing Island as the result of the Patriots Day windstorm. When was that? Back in at least 10, 11 years ago. And it knocked down a lot of spruce on the east side of the island. And then that summer of 2010, we did about 15 wildfire risk assessments near the structures and about 9 forested areas. And then over that winter in 2010, we wrote a community wildfire protection plan. And the summary kind of said that Cushing received a rating of moderate risk for a wildfire, which, but that's still good. Still a lot of risk. And they became Firewise in 2012. And then on Great Diamond Island, I think we had initial contact. Actually, that's Little Diamond Island. Let me get to Great Diamond Island. We received an email from Bruce LaPierre about an illegal campfire on his property. So that was a big concern. He had some questions about the legality of that. Fortunately, that didn't result in a large wildfire. But in the fall of 2013, we did about 9 wildfire risk assessments and a couple of vegetation plots in the forested areas. And I think that covered both sides of the island. We have not done a community wildfire protection plan yet, but we'd still like to do that in the future. And we think that the rating for Great Diamond would be similar to the other islands. It'd probably be a high, moderate risk for wildfire. And then they became Firewise in 2014. Little Diamond, as I started to say, the initial contact was David Inman, and he was concerned about fire and access on the island. In 2010, we did 16 wildfire risk assessments and 4 vegetation plots, and did write a community wildfire protection plan. And they also received moderate. And they became Firewise in 2013. So I wanted to talk a little about some of the key Firewise Day events we've had in the past. This one here was inside on Cushing. I don't remember whose house it was, but we got together, and of course I didn't bring a projector and have a PowerPoint. I just had some posters on foam backing, and we talked about the same things we're talking about today, trying to reduce that risk of homes igniting from a wildfire. And it was a good group. I don't think we could do that close setting now, at least until this pandemic is over, but it is good that we can do this virtually. And then on Great Diamond Island, I did quite a few Firewise Day events in conjunction with the Ripple Run, the charity run that usually occurs in August during low tide, where they run over to Little Diamond and then back to Great Diamond. But I set up a booth near the little store there in the restaurant and talked to people. And these folks were willing to pose for a picture as I handed them some brochures. And then Little Diamond Island, I think this was their casino. What do they call that little house? Is that right?
Casino.
Hey, Paula, I didn't see you. Good. I'm glad you made it.
Well,
so we did this. Oh, go ahead.
You can hear me. I think I was muted.
Oh, I can see you.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah. No, I don't know if you can see me, but I'm waving. So we're kind of going through the presentation now, and we'll have some time at the end for some questions. But if you have anything to chime in, or I'm saying something wrong, then let me know.
I've been on since the beginning when you started.
Good, good.
Thank you for doing this.
Oh, good to have you. So we all know about the Defensible Space Chipping Program, and I've got just a couple of slides about that. We started off, I think this one is Cushing Island, and that's our old chipper, just picking up some brush with some of the volunteers that work there during the summer. I think they have a crew of teenagers that helped clean up stuff, so they helped us a little bit. That was good. And then Great Diamond Island, we did some chipping there, and I think this is the cottage side, and we dumped the chips near the playground area, and they spread them out and made it to so it'd be less likely the kids would get injured if they fell off the swing. So that's a good use. And this picture is coming over from Little Diamond Island, and I was always kind of worried about taking the truck and the chipper across during low tide, but we never had any problems. And if we did, I don't know if you can see in the back there, but there's old Sam Tucker in the garbage truck, and I sorry for his loss. He will be greatly missed, but he was always there for us if we got stuck and willing to help, and that's too bad he's no longer with us.
We miss him. We have someone by the name of Rob McAndrews that's taken over. He was a former physics teacher in Connecticut, and has a house on Great Diamond. So we do miss Sam. Rob McAndrews, I think, help with big trash pickup. So
Well, good. I got a chance to meet him briefly, and he was running a bucket loader pretty good from what I could see. So he'll be good for the community.
oh yeah.
Yep. So here's just a couple of small slides, more about the chipping program, and you can see the different areas that we get that chipper truck in. And you guys have been great about getting the brush piles curbside, as we say, and we did, despite the pandemic this year, we still got quite a lot of brush chipped on each island. And, you know, I think there would have been okay if we didn't do much for the Firewise program, but as we all know, fire doesn't know or care anything about viruses. It's going to burn where it has the three things it needs: oxygen, heat, and fuel. So it's good that you, even though we all didn't do as much this year, we did a little bit, and that's a good thing, because that brush keeps on growing. So I'll take a little break here and switch gears, and we're going to talk a little bit about the current fire activity. So far this year, we've recorded 965 wildfires, which have burned 984 acres. So that's the second highest total in the past decade. And we haven't had this many fires since the early 2000s. So we're going almost 20 years to have this type of fire. And the other thing is that nearly 75% of these fires either destroy, damage, or threaten structures. So a lot of these wildfires are in areas where people are building homes and cottages and camps, and that's what we're trying to avoid, is igniting those homes and structures. Today is actually a red flag warning. It starts at 10 o'clock when this meeting started, and this is a little bit different than our daily fire danger rating. This comes in conjunction with the National Weather Service, and is for a specific period of time based on the weather conditions. So it's going to be windy this afternoon with a low relative humidity. Even though it's kind of cool this morning, if a fire gets away, it's likely to burn pretty rapidly. So at least with our online burn permits, we've shut down all permits for burning brush. So that'll hopefully eliminate any fires escaping today. And I think everyone also knows about the status of the drought today. This slide was back from the 15th, but you can see that most of the state is in moderate to severe drought, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Maybe the coast will get a little bit of rain from this Hurricane Teddy, but we are definitely in a dry situation.
We have a son that lives in Northern California, and it's been a little burny out there, and a lot of ash and poor air quality.
Even if they're not directly impacted by fire and flames, that whole region is breathing smoke, and from being out there on Western fire duties in the past, it really adds a lot of tension to everything. You put that on top of the tension and the stress associated with the virus, and those people are in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
So getting back to the current fire activity here in Maine, this is kind of the top 3 causes of wildfires so far in 2020. And this is typical for any year. We do investigate all wildland fires, and we put them in a category of how they were started. So the top number of fires so far in 2020 is debris burns, which you've got there in the middle of the screen there, the top. And that's people that have good intentions. They want to try to burn some of the brush that they think is a fire hazard. So they hopefully get a burn permit and they burn that brush, but they don't often put it out fully. or they're burning in a windy time during the day, and that fire gets away and that causes a wildfire. So far out of the nearly 1,000 fires this year, almost 300 of them have been caused by escape debris burns. The second most frequent cause is in the lower left corner there. It's called equipment-caused fires, and I've got a picture of a timber harvester there that caught on fire, and sometimes that spreads into the woods. That also could be on a smaller scale. That could be someone using a chainsaw or a brush cutter or even a lawnmower. If that lawnmower blade hits a rock on a day like today where it's dry and we have low relative humidity and the winds are going to be kicking up this afternoon, that's a recipe for a wildfire. So we have nearly 200 equipment-caused wildfires so far this year. And the last category is unattended campfires, and that's about 135 out of the 1,000 fires. And that seems like a small number, but you know, this really, I mean, they're all preventable. They're all human caused and can be preventable, but through prevention and education, we really want to tell people that just because you have a fire in a campfire surrounded by rocks with a grill doesn't mean it can't escape. And I don't know if you can see that picture or if it's too small, but this campfire is surrounded by rocks, and you can see behind it where it burnt away and into the forest. So rocks are kind of a good idea, but still you need to make sure that fire is completely out before you leave the area. And you do that by repeatedly dousing it and stirring the coals and then checking and then coming back in 5 minutes and checking again. So I won't go too much further into putting out campfires because I think you guys are aware of that, and fortunately you're very cautious campfires on your islands.
Ken, has there been any lightning strike fires in the state of Maine?
No, I think the last time I checked, it was only at 4% of the total. So it was maybe 20 or, you know, a very small amount, and certainly has not been many in the last few weeks. So that's a good question, and that really contrasts with out west because a lot of their fires are caused by dry lightning. But fortunately,
we had no lightning storms.
Yeah, we haven't had too many here, but go ahead.
No rain. This is Sarah Meacham from Cushing Island. But there's been absolutely no rain, so therefore no lightning at all.
Good, good. Well, sometimes we get lightning with just a little bit of rain, and when it's this dry, it might not start a fire immediately, but it could kind of smolder overnight and then start up the next day. So we need to be cautious of those. The other thing too, I've seen fires that are caused during heavy winds when the power lines get knocked down, and that kind of sparks before they shut the power off. So we have to be cautious of those too. So those lightning and power line fires are not considered human caused, but we still need to be aware of them. So thanks for bringing that up. So here are some of the wildfire concerns for coastal islands. And I've talked about this stuff before, but this is kind of a review, but volatile vegetation near structures. And what I mean by volatile is your softwoods. They have a lot more resins in the bark, and they're more likely to ignite if there is a fire. And the other thing is excessive fuel loading near structures and commonly owned properties. Fuel loading is a buildup of brush. That's simply what it is. So you guys have been, pardon the pun, but you've been chipping away at that for 10 years, and but it keeps growing. So you got to keep at that, and I appreciate your efforts. And obviously, having these cottages on islands, there's going to be increased response time and limited access. That's a tough one to deal with. But fortunately, most of you folks do have access to freshwater hydrants because they really don't like to use salt water for wildland fire pumps and equipment. And also the tides are challenging too if you do have to use that. Sorry about that. Robocalls keep bothering me. Anyway, so let's keep moving on here. I want to do a little review of NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association. They have a good way to remember where to focus your efforts on reducing the risk of fires near your structures. They've put it into these 3 zones. And we used to kind of call this defensible space, and that's still used, but they prefer this terminology. So I try to use it, and they have 3 home ignition zones. The area within 0 to 5 feet is called the immediate zone, and then beyond that, 5 feet to 30 feet is the intermediate, and then extended is 30 feet to 100 feet, which I'm not sure many of you folks have on these islands. Usually the camp lot or cottage property is usually quarter acre, half acre, something like that. But the immediate zone is an area that a lot of the needles and leaves tend to gather. And it's pretty easy just to rake those away. And hopefully you were able to do that before you left the island. But let's talk about that. I've got some pictures here that show some examples. So on the left, you see a cottage that has the cedar shingle siding that is popular along the coast, and that is pretty flammable siding, but they've got rocks down there, little maybe pea stone, gravel, and that's probably so water doesn't splash up on the siding, but that's a great deterrent for a surface fire. Whereas in contrast, on the right, we've got a similar structure, but they've got a softwood tree, a spruce or a fir growing right next to it. And that's probably the backyard, because we tend not to focus too much on that, and I'm guilty of that at my house as well. But in the case of that softwood tree there, it might be worth either removing it or pruning it and just reducing the chance of a surface fire getting up into it and igniting the structure. Here's another couple of examples. On the left-hand side, you've got a cottage with a lot of leaf litter and kind of a forested area in front of it going uphill, where if a fire started below that, it would carry up through in the leaves, get underneath that deck, and ignite the structure. And in contrast, here on the right, again, we've got a little kind of a patio area with gravel, which is not combustible. And there's a few leaves there, but I don't think those leaves would carry a fire. So this is kind of a potential volatile situation on the left, and then not so bad on the right. One of the organizations that does a lot of research on how homes ignite is the International Business Home and Safety Group, based out of North Carolina. And they actually built a house in a metal warehouse and did some experiments. And I find this fascinating that they came up with a machine that blows embers onto this this structure. So you can see the embers coming out of there. And what they did was, the left side of the house has all wood products and it has mulch on the ground in front of it. And the right side it still is made of wood, but it has stones along the ground, and it has I'm not sure what type of siding that is. I tried to find that out. I think it's ceramic, fire-resistant siding. And so they threw some embers at it, and in a few minutes, you can see what happened. The fire ignited the side on the left, and the side on the right resisted that fire. And here's the picture afterwards. You can see that the fire started in the mulch here, and the wind blew it up and the embers up into the siding, and it crept up the left side of the house here. So that would have been totaled if they didn't put that out. Now this is a shot of a new camp up in central Maine that was taken last year, and they had a similar fire where a debris burn was left unattended and kindled up in the afternoon and started creeping along the ground, and they had some wood scraps from the construction right by that ladder, and that they ignited and started that siding on fire. And I think the forest ranger, you can see his truck there in the background. I think he and the other firefighters got there just in time to save that structure. But that's pretty scary, and it does happen here in Maine. Now, this picture on the right, we staged that. We found out that in Camden, about 3 years ago, they were given a permission to burn down a structure that they were going to make into a parking area for a trailhead for hiking. And so we got together with the fire department and set up all our equipment and had plenty of water there. And then we lit some straw down on the ground. And sure enough, that straw caught that shrub on fire and then caught the upstairs, kind of has an overhanging, like a cat's walk up there. It caught that on fire in no time. And then we put that out and they burned it at a later date because it was just too dry. And this was a springtime burn. So fire does get pretty nasty if you've got those softwoods near your structures. And the picture on the left was taken down east about 10 years ago, showing a big fire, probably 500 or 600 acres burning down there, and people being evacuated. So, you know, it's easy to say, well, we've got plenty of rain here, or we have fog in the morning, or it's not quite as dry as other parts of the country, but we do have fires here, and they do destroy a lot of homes, and we want to avoid that. So again, reviewing the home ignition zones, the immediate zone we just talked about, I'm going to transition to the intermediate, which is a little further away, 5 feet to 30 feet. And this was taken in Booth Bay Harbor. And I don't know if you can tell, but that's kind of a slope there. So they've got a couple of softwood trees in front of their house, which overlooks the ocean. And then they had some brush there. I think they cut down some of the hardwoods. And if there, and there actually is a structure below them, closer to the water. And if that structure caught on fire and the embers were blown into that area, that fire would increase in speed because fire preheats as it goes uphill. And it would definitely catch that deck and that house on fire. So that's kind of a watch out situation there. And I've talked about ladder fuels before, how a surface fire can ignite the lower branches of a softwood tree and then get up in the crown. You definitely got to be careful of that. Here's some building materials and some of the leaf litter. This was taken in the fall on one of the islands. I can't remember which one, maybe Little Diamond. And you can see that they're, you know, they've got the nice lattice work there to keep the critters from getting underneath the porch there, but that's flammable. So if for some reason those leaves were to ignite, it would ignite the house. So you have to be careful of those situations. And one option is take the lattice off and just rake it out 2 or 3 times in the summer, get that dry vegetation out of there.
Kent,
and here, oh, go ahead.
Hi, Kent. Jim Stevens from Great Diamond Island.
Yes.
Hi. A question about fuel ladders, and the fact that being on islands, we have a difficult time disposing of what would make up a fuel ladder if we cut them out of the forests. Just wondering. I'm hoping that there's some way for us to get help disposing of the material once we remove the fuel ladder from the woods. What do you think about that?
Well, I would concentrate on the softwoods near the structures. So are you talking about across the street from you? I kind of picture that.
Well, I guess there's a lot of areas on the island where, for instance, bittersweet vines might start on the ground and then grow up into a tree. Mm-hmm. There's also low-hanging softwood branches reaching down to the ground in several places, like around where the playground is.
Yeah.
So there's an overwhelming amount of limbs and brush that we could take out of our woods. But then what do we do with it?
Yeah. Well, there's a part of the challenge of living on these coastal islands, and I don't really have an answer for getting rid of more than what we do. You know, we do the 1 day per community per year. I realize that's not enough, but I think we're in kind of a stage of triage here. I think we have to really concentrate on the ladder fuels and softwoods that are closest to the homes and the cottages and outbuildings. I don't know if you're really going to get all of it, even if you had a full-time crew all summer. And I don't want to discourage folks from doing that, but I'm trying to get you to kind of see the vegetation and prioritize it and work on the vegetation near the structures. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Well, it does. We do appreciate the fact that you have come out and given us a little bit more time and chipped more of what the property owners have taken out to the road. And all I can say is the more chipping time you can give to us, the better.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for the comment.
Just another comment. I know with a lot of our big stuff on Little Diamond Island that we put out in the edge that the chipper doesn't do, big trash pickup will take everything. So if people can get any of that large stuff out to the road, big trash pickup will take it.
That's good advice. And from my experiences helping load some of the brush, when you get some of that really nasty brambles with the stickers and everything, we don't like dealing with that. And when that truck comes up a couple of weeks after us, I think they just have a kind of a big metal claw that picks it up and loads it into the bins. So it's a lot safer. We don't want to cut our workers' hands.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, I'll keep pressing on here. I want to talk a little bit about leaf litter on the roofs. Of course, that's going to be happening more and more in the next month here. But some people are reluctant to spend time cleaning the needles and leaves off their roof. But I wanted to show them this picture on the right here. This was taken out in Rumford at a cottage along a lake. But it's a metal roof, which is very fire resistant. But they've got pine needles in it. And my concern with this right here is the pine needles could ignite if there was a structure fire nearby and the wind blew an ember in there. And it would kind of drip down onto that softwood pine and ignite that pine and then ignite the house. So keep that in mind that especially this time of year, if you can have someone help you or safely rake some of those needles and leaves off the roof, it will help not just now if there's a fire, but next spring when it's dry again after the snow melts and there's that fire danger in the spring. So when I'm on the islands, I also look at the possible ignition sources. The one on the right is, I don't know how many people are still burning wood on the islands this time of year, but you know how they dispose their ashes is very important, that they make sure the ashes are stirred with water before they dump them and that they don't just throw them in the woods. We've had some people do that, and it's usually in the springtime. Same thing with outdoor grills. I don't know if you can see in the left-hand picture, there's a little pile of coals where people had used charcoal and just dumped them right there. And that's like 10 feet away from the corner of a house. So we have to really discourage the dumping of ashes.
Can I interrupt? It's Sarah Meacham again.
Sure.
I found last year for the first time in many years that ashes are terrific for your compost heap. That they
Yes.
had a lot of some nutrient that we all need in our gardens. And so out they go, and the compost heap is always wet and always a good place to dispose of them.
That's a great idea. I think it lowers the pH or something. I think, which
Something
you have a
like
lot
that.
of, you probably have a lot of acid in the soil out there because of the softwood trees. So
Yeah.
that's great. So another ignition source, I've talked about this a couple times, is, you know, a structure fire could start 2 or 3 cottages away from your cottage, and as the fire burns, it sends embers up. Now, in this case, this was another one that we staged. It was an old tower watchman's camp, and we burnt this legally when there was snow on the ground. But just a reminder that cottages are also an ignition source, so we need to be careful with that. And when you are removing the brush and the trees, I like to have you concentrate on the smaller stuff, about the size of your wrist. That size and smaller is more likely to carry a surface fire, which are the most common types of fires in Maine. And how we know that, we've done studies, and we label them as by how many hours it takes for them to dry. So if you have a moisture, like a rain event for 3 days, the 1,000-hour fuels are about as like that log that's on the ground there, 12 inches in diameter. That is going to take 1,000 hours before it dries out after that heavy rain. Whereas a 10-hour fuel or a 1-hour fuel is about the size of a pencil. That's going to dry out in an hour. So if you use today, for example, it's a red flag day, low relative humidity, windy afternoon. If it suddenly rained for an hour, it wouldn't take long for that small stuff to dry enough that it would burn again. So we like to have you focus on removing the smaller stuff near your cottages and homes. Now, I understand that the big stuff falls down and it could be a threat to the falling on the roof. That needs to be removed as well. But if you're hurting for resources and manpower to move the big stuff, then it can be bucked up and piled and left to decompose. And I know they've done a lot of that on Cushing Island on the east side. And just, I always have to have this disclaimer. Our recommendations do not overrule the state shoreland zoning laws. So please don't open up a view to the water and say the ranger said it was okay to cut all these trees, because I'll be in trouble. You guys know better than that. So kind of wrapping this up, Firewise plans for the future. I assume everyone still wants to maintain their current status as Firewise USA sites. We'll continue the brush chipping days, focusing on brush and vegetation near structures. I'd like to do more random wildfire risk assessments where I look at the exterior of the structures and the landscaping and kind of score it on a rating of low, moderate, or high risk. I've done some of those, but I'd like to continue to do those. And I'm always looking for new venues for this annual Firewise Day events. I think this is a good opportunity today to do this virtually, but I don't want to continue it. I would much rather have a face-to-face conversation in the upcoming years, or tag along to some type of a community event where I can set up a booth in the corner and that people who are interested can come talk to me. I know that Little Diamond Island has had ice cream socials, and I've been fortunate to be there for that. And you know, it's a good time for the community to get together. Were you able to do that this year, Paula?
No, we did not have the Saturday night dinners. The casino was closed.
Yeah.
It's been a very odd summer. And next summer, you are invited as our guests to come to one of our Saturday night dinners because they're good.
Okay.
Just Another thought, which I did not realize when Eric was here doing the chipping this summer, he did one Firewise assessment, and it never occurred to me that he could do that as he's moving around with the chipper. That's a great opportunity because the Islanders are usually there to have you or Eric do that.
Yep, I try to do that once in a while, but I tend to kind of stay near the chipper when that's operating. I have a responsibility to make sure they're being safe. But no, that's fine if you did one. And I know I've done a couple during the Ripple Run event, but that's really not a lot of time because I'm always worried about the tide coming back in. So, but we'll try to find a good time to do that. Maybe that same Saturday. And I try to rotate around to the different islands and do at least one weekend a year if possible there. So, well, I appreciate the offer.
Next summer, we'll know in the spring what Saturday night our committee, whatever committee we're on for Saturday night dinner. You're always so very busy. I will get you a message and say, block out that Saturday night and bring your wife.
All right. Thank you so much. So here's something, I don't know if you guys have applied for this before. I forgot to look it up, but the National Fire Protection Association offers this $500 grant every year for what they call Community Wildfire Preparedness Day. And they have it set for the first Saturday in May. But I talked to them and I said, you know, a lot of the cottage owners in Maine, they don't even get to their camps till the end of May. So they did give us some flexibility on that. So it could be done in May or June, but it's kind of a good opportunity, and the money doesn't come from the state. So it's not coming from me. I just kind of like to promote it because I've seen some communities do a lot of good things with it. Now, this picture here was taken from our Firewise community in Leamington around Pequawket Lake. And they got the grant, you know, they spent a few hours applying for the grant. They got the $500 check, and they got a group of 10 or 12 people together, and they went around and they did some light brush clearing around their roads, and some of the elderly folks in the community that weren't able to clear their own brush. And then they had a cookout, and they used the money from the grant to pay for some non-motorized gear like lopping shears and cutting hand pruners and hand saws that they gave to the people who participated, and they also bought them t-shirts. So it's kind of you probably don't want to do it every year, but if you have the energy and the interest, I can give you the link for that. And I think the deadline is in February or something like that. Again, it has nothing to do with the state, so I don't track the money. It actually comes from State Farm Insurance. So once you guys tell them what you want to do and it's approved, they don't bug you at all. You know, you could use it for a meal, or, you know, as long as it had something to do with cutting brush and education of fire prevention.
I would like that link, please.
Yeah, I'll make sure you have it. I don't think you can apply just yet, but certainly this winter.
Yeah, if you could send that out, kind of be great to get that as well.
Okay. Well, I think I've already said most of my closing words of wisdom, but I'm going to leave this time to see if there's any questions. And I do thank you so much for your attention during this last, I guess I went a little over, it's about 45 minutes, but anything I can help answer? Any questions?
I learned stuff today. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this. This is Sarah Meacham. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for tuning in. And for those that are the Firewise representatives, this counts as a Firewise Day event. And then we'll have to, I'll have to send you the amount of brush that was chipped in an email. And then by early to mid-November, which is not all that far away, you have to go online and kind of put in the data to stay with the program. So hopefully that'll go well for you. And maybe I can help you if you have any questions on that when the time comes. But
Ken, this
go
is
ahead.
Paula Lusardi again, from Little Diamond. I had trouble with that app last year for some reason. I do okay with computer stuff. May I call you again? You helped me and got it done in about 2 minutes. And
Yeah.
I've been hours for some reason trying to finish that. Do you mind?
No, I'd be glad to help you. Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
should be pretty easy, and it's good for me to see how that goes.
Okay. Thank you.
Kent, this is Jim Stevens. Thanks again for holding the meeting and look forward to following up on participating in that program you talked about.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone's efforts, and this wouldn't happen without you folks. And we appreciate the volunteer time you spend on it and the time today. And I hope you guys have a safe rest of the week and a good winter. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ken.
Bye.
All right. And
Bye.
I'll send out emails with the recording of this once I edit it down. It takes about a day.
Perfect.